My name is James and I live in a quiet log cabin in the middle of nowhere. My closest neighbors are a 10-mile drive down a bumpy dirt road. I'm a vet by trade, or at least I used to be a city vet. A few years ago, I lost my daughter Emily in a car accident, and the pain just became too much. I couldn't handle the hustle and bustle anymore, so I sold everything and bought this piece of land in the deep woods of Montana. My days now are simple: a morning cup of coffee on the porch, a long hike, and some tinkering in my workshop. It's a peaceful life, but a lonely one. The isolation didn't bother me, though. It was a shield, a thick wall of solitude that kept the world and all its sorrows out. I had a small practice here for the local farmers, treating their cows and horses, but mostly I just kept to myself. My life was predictable, and that was exactly what I wanted. Until one summer morning. A morning that changed everything. The sun was just peeking over the mountain tops, casting long shadows through the trees. I was on my porch sipping my coffee when I saw something move at the edge of the clearing. Something big. My heart skipped a beat. It was a grizzly bear. A massive one. I've seen bears before, of course, but always from a safe distance. This one was different. It wasn't foraging or just passing through. It was walking straight towards my cabin. My mind raced, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I thought of my rifle, which I kept by the door, but something in the bear's movement stopped me. It was slow and deliberate. Its head was down, and its powerful body seemed to sag with exhaustion. In its mouth, it held something small and limp. A cub. My vet instincts kicked in, and I could see the cub wasn't moving. It was barely breathing. As the bear got closer, I could see its face. Its eyes were red and swollen, and a single tear traced a path through the dust on its snout. The most heartbreaking sound I've ever heard came from its throat, a low guttural whimper, a sound of pure anguish and desperation. I froze. I was terrified, but also completely mesmerized by the raw emotion in its eyes. This wasn't an attack. This was a plea. The bear stopped about 50 feet from my porch and gently laid the cub on the ground. It nudged the little one with its nose and let out another mournful cry. The cub didn't stir. The mother bear looked at me, then back at her cub. I knew what she was asking. She was begging me to help. I've spent my entire career helping animals, but this was on a whole other level. My mind screamed at me to stay inside, to not risk it, but my heart couldn't ignore the sight. The despair in the bear's eyes was so profound it was almost human. I took a deep breath and slowly stepped off the porch. I kept my hands visible and spoke softly, my voice a little shaky. "Hey there. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The bear didn't move. She watched me with a mix of suspicion and hope. I knelt down a few feet from the cub. It was a tiny thing, its fur matted and sticky with a strange greenish substance. The cub's breathing was shallow, and it was shivering uncontrollably despite the warm summer air. My gut told me it was a serious case of poisoning. I knew I didn't have much time. I looked at the mother bear, and she just stared back, her powerful body tense but unmoving. "I'm going to take him inside," I said, my voice still a whisper. "I'll try to help." I carefully scooped up the cub. It felt incredibly light and fragile in my arms. I turned and walked back to the cabin. I expected the mother bear to charge, to tear me apart for touching her cub, but she didn't. She just followed me with her eyes. I took the cub into my small clinic, which was just a converted shed next to the house. I laid the cub on a clean blanket on my examination table. I quickly grabbed my stethoscope and listened to its heart. It was weak, but still beating. I needed to act fast. I looked out the window and saw the mother bear sitting just outside the shed, her large form a silent guardian. She wasn't going anywhere. I felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with an old familiar feeling, the need to save a life. It was a feeling I hadn't let myself feel since before Emily. I pushed the memories aside and focused on the task at hand. I drew some blood for testing and started in 4-drip to rehydrate the cub. The greenish substance on its fur smelled vaguely like a pesticide commonly used in nearby farms. I had an antidote for it, but I wasn't sure if it would be enough. The cub's body temperature was dropping fast. For the next few hours, I worked tirelessly. I gave the cub fluids and the antidote. I wrapped it in warm blankets and placed a heating pad under the table. The cub didn't respond. I kept checking its vitals, and they were getting weaker and weaker. I kept looking out the window at the mother bear. She was still there, unmoving, her eyes fixed on the shed. I felt a sense of responsibility, not just to the cub, but to its mother. She had trusted me. She had put her child's life in my hands. I couldn't fail her. As the sun reached its highest point in the sky, the cub's condition worsened. I felt a cold knot of dread form in my stomach. I had done everything I knew how to do, but it wasn't working. I had one last resort, an experimental drug I had developed for a similar type of poisoning in canines. It was a risky shot, a high dose that could either save the cub or kill it instantly. I hesitated. Was I ready to take that risk? I looked at the little bear's still form and then at its mother outside. I saw her desperation and my own sorrow surfaced. The image of Emily's empty room, the silence in the house after the accident, the guilt of not being there for her, it all came flooding back. I realized that what I was doing for this cub was also for myself. It was a chance to confront the grief I had been running from. It was a chance to prove to myself that I could still save a life. I prepared the syringe, my hands trembling slightly. "Please work," I whispered to the cub. I administered the shot and waited. For what felt like an eternity, nothing happened. The cub's breathing remained shallow. I felt the hope drain out of me. I had failed. Again. Just as I was about to give up, I saw a flicker. The cub's eyelids twitched. Then its little paw moved. It let out a tiny whimper and started to shiver again, this time with more strength. I checked its heart rate, and it was getting stronger. The antidote was working. I let out a long sigh of relief, and tears of my own welled up. I hadn't failed. I looked out the window and saw the mother bear get up and pace back and forth. She had seen the movement. She knew. I spent the rest of the day and night monitoring the cub. By morning, it was sitting up. It was weak and disoriented, but it was alive. I gave it some water, and it drank thirstily. I looked at the mother bear outside the shed. She was still there, but now there was a different look in her eyes. It was a look of immense gratitude. I opened the shed door, and she took a step back, but didn't run. "He's going to be okay," I said softly. "He's all yours." I gently picked up the cub and walked to the edge of the forest. I put the cub down on the ground, and it wobbled towards its mother. The mother bear sniffed the cub all over and let out a soft rumble of a sound. She looked at me, then back at her cub. She gently nudged the cub, and they both turned and disappeared into the dense woods. My heart felt full. I had saved a life, and in doing so I had saved a part of myself. I went back to my porch and sat down sipping my coffee. The silence was still there, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with the memory of a crying bear and a miracle that happened right in my backyard. A few weeks passed, and life returned to a new kind of normal. I was still living in my cabin, but I felt a change inside me. I started to talk to people again. I went into town and met a woman named Sarah, a recent transplant from the city who had bought a small farm. We started spending time together, sharing stories and a few laughs. She had her own sorrows, and together we found a kind of healing in each other's company. One day, Sarah and I were hiking in the woods picking wild berries. We were deep in the forest when we saw them. The mother bear and her cub. The cub was now healthy and strong, playing with its mother. They saw us, but they didn't run. They just looked at us for a moment, their gaze holding a quiet understanding. It was a silent thank you, a bond forged in pain and sealed with hope. It was a beautiful sight, and I knew then that my life had come full circle. I had found my purpose again, not as a vet in a busy city, but as a person who could still make a difference right here in the heart of the wild.